should have a routine, whether that be the kids go to the table first or the kids come to the carpet first, whatever you do, right? You don't want to have calling kids to line up and you have them sitting on the carpet and you got the kids in line waiting 2 minutes until they get a bubble and get quiet. You're going to be waiting a long time. You can choose your battles. Those kind of things. Eliminate the waiting, right? So come up with a routine that's consistent, that works for you guys. You do name the face, right? That could be them saying a silly name that you know is going to get their attention. They're going to want to say it. Doing that, calling them to line up, you're making the eye contact with them and you're also clicking it on the iPad, right? Minimize the waiting time, okay? These are some transition suggestions, the things to just kind of have on hand. So one thing is like a basket of items that you can just pull out at any second to kind of get everybody's attention. So I put things like a ball, bubbles are really good for toddlers, tone of voice. When everybody's at a high tone, go low. Opposite. Don't try to scream over them, right? Trust me, it works. Because they get to sneaking up on you like, what are you saying? You know? And just walk around in the room and just start whispering. I promise you, it works. Those who struggle with circle time. Maybe your circle time starts out with a game. I've seen some people do like hot potato. And that's how they introduce everybody for the day coming in. Once they get it, they say the class says their name. Something different, right? That gets their body moving. A bell, a song, something routinely to let them know it's time to transition, it's time to clean up. Okay? For 3s and up, I put sentence starters. The teaching grabbers are really, really good. In the next slide, I'll have a couple on there for you. Rhythm sticks. And my biggest one, the only kids in the hallway that I honestly feel like should not be expected to be quiet are the ones that are getting ready to go to kindergarten. Everybody else should be able to sing, chant, hop, you know, whatever. You're going to kill yourself trying to make everybody be quiet. Okay? So here are some attention grabbers. Miss Joshua said the macaroni and cheese, and she said the everybody freeze. But y'all supposed to say it. Stop, look, and listen. And the kids clap twice, and they say okay. Just different things to kind of get the class to tone down. These are really good for older friends, especially when a parent comes in and they're not being disruptive, but the volume is just a little elevated. To say that so you can kind of quickly talk to that parent, okay? Without saying, everybody be quiet, or everybody hush, okay? Be creative and think of some chants your kids like. Here are some more attention grabbers for older kids 3 and up. Storytelling is really good. And when I say storytelling, like literally, I have just made up things before, like, this morning I got up and I brushed my teeth. Brush your teeth with me. You know, I put on my shirt, put your shirt on, put your pants on. The weirdest things kids find attractive. And they get into it like, oh, I put my pants on today too. Like, show me how you put your pants on. You know, you got to stop some kids because they will really try to take them down and show you. But just going over routine and things that you're supposed to do in the morning, right? Mindfulness games, Simon Says, Duck Duck Goose, musical chairs. It's like an old school game, but it's so fun. But you're also teaching kids to wait and how to understand, like if they're out, right? Not to throw a tantrum and get a fit because they're gonna get to play again. All right. So shifting to new students transitioning into your classroom, and this is kind of a two-part. We're talking about new friends coming into your room that they have just enrolled with the school, and their friends that are transitioning class to class, okay? So, when you get new friends, they generally look like that, especially if they haven't been in preschool before, okay? So, I used to kind of have this thing where I wanted parents to just sneak away, and I would tell them, like, I'm going to do this with them, and you just run off, you know what I mean? Until, and I'll be transparent, I went to a training and I heard a different perspective. Validating the kid's feelings. So acknowledging you seem sad, I know mom's leaving, you know what I mean? But also telling that parent, instead of sneaking away, give your child a proper goodbye in a timely manner, of course, right? We don't want nobody dragging along. But then letting them know they will be back after nap time, and then that parent walks away. Not sneaking away or anything like that. The reason being she brought it to my attention is like that, almost that feeling of abandonment, right? And with some kids have been foster kids, some kids have experienced things aside of just having a stable home, and we don't know that first day they're coming into our classroom most times. So that could easily trigger a child who's probably had a different, group of parents, and people have been in and out. So just trying to change your mindset with it and giving parents like, hey, say your goodbyes. And then it's our job as the teacher to validate their feelings and to let them know, hey, mom and dad is coming back, okay? All right. Other things, are you prepared? Do they have a label cubby in the locker? Information sheets, allergies before you even serve them breakfast. You don't have that, call the front, hey, I need their allergy sheet, right? That's one of the biggest things that I've seen that some people will kind of just skip by and go by. It's important. Something to be intentional about, kids on their first day, maybe asking their friend, could you have their parents' number? So you can call them from your classroom and say, 5 minutes of your time during nap, hey, they had a good morning, right? When they call and ask the front managers, the managers have to ask y'all how their day was or how it's going. The parents like it so much better when they see you called, right? You took the time out to say, let me inform you about their day and their morning routine. Because honestly, you're their teacher, it's not management. So it's more authentic coming from you guys. All right? And that's something that you can make personable without taking up your day. A small note. When kids come in, greeting them by their name instead of always friend or sister or brother, learning the kids' names and greeting them by name. All right. Transitioning class to class. So when kids are moving up and you're getting new friends, these are a couple things I want you to think about. What are the developmental expectations that we are achieving for students to reach prior to them going to the next classroom? So kids leave here and they go to preschool 3. Do you know some of the developmental requirements that they should be trying to attempt to meet in here to go in there? If you don't, then that's when you have a conversation with the next classroom. Hey, what are some things that you guys do that we need to work on? Preppers potty training, that's one of the biggest things, but there are other things too. What are some things they need to work on before going to preschool 1, right? So you're helping each other out and nobody's feeling like they're overly stressed, like they're having to start from scratch. Okay? Am I good on time?
You got 5 more minutes.
I have 5 more minutes. Small groups. All right. This is the overall purpose of small groups. Everybody should be doing them. Small groups give you the opportunity to really see where kids are at, right? Outside of a circle time, you working with 2 up to 7. My personal favorite is like 4, but that's depending on the level of your classroom, if you're by yourself, or if you have a co-teacher. But small groups give you the time to do observations. Observations meaning, hey, you have like a little notepad, and as y'all are going over the lesson, you're writing down, okay, they couldn't recognize B, or they recognized this one, those kind of things. So when you have to do your assessments at the end of, what is it, spring or fall, you don't feel like you're having to backtrack in your mind, who knows how to do what, right? Going back to that journal and being like, okay, here are all my notes, now you can put them in from there. All right, so this is something I just wanted to share with you guys, the difference in the type of groups that you can have. So homogeneous groups, meaning that those kids that you have put together more or less are on the same level. Heterogeneous groups, meaning that they have some differences. So you may have a kid that's more advanced and a kid that's not as advanced as that student, but they're in a small group together. It's still a benefit. And I say that because the kid that's struggling can pick up on that language from being around a kid that is a little bit more advanced. It helps them, right? And I think a lot of times we try to just do the kids that are all on the same level, which is not bad by any means, but sometimes that exposure to friends that are a little bit above them, it does help them. So keeping that in mind when you are making your small groups, big suggestion, stick to your small groups once you have your kids in a group. writing it down, putting it in your cabinet, so when people come in, they know these kids work together, right? Other things you want to consider when you're doing your small groups behaviors. Who works good together, who does not work good together. You want to keep all of that in mind. All right. Communication. So, when this comes to your co-teachers, who do you work with? What are their struggles, right? We talked about earlier, when you're having a rough day, you being able to have that comfortable feeling of talking to your co-teacher. How can they support you? What pushes their buttons? How can you support them? Do each teacher know their duties in the classroom? That's a big one. If I'm in a classroom with someone but I don't know what I'm supposed to do, how can I do my part? When it comes to parents, effective communication, things that you already have requirements for classroom progress, right? When you have your documentations of learning, you want to keep those consistent. You don't want the same one up months, because it makes the parents feel like, well, are they learning? Like, what are they doing? You know, they like to come in and see their kids' stuff up. Parent-teacher conferences, being intentional with that, to not treat it like a bash session, honestly, and say, hey, this is what they're good at, this is what they need to work on. You can't be afraid to tell them what they're struggling with either. It can't just be all the good things, right? Be transparent, but also let them know the things their kid does that's really good. Pick up and drop off routine. What is that like? When parents come in, if you're over here on the carpet, I might not be able to get up and greet them, but I'm gonna wave my hand and say good morning or have a good day. A parent should not come in and us not speak. Even if they don't speak to us, never change your character because of someone else. Still speak, still be kind, okay? Communicating incident reports, right? Let's take our feelings out of it. I think that's a whole thing in itself. Making sure when we're writing them, we're writing what we actually see, not our opinions. When I say that, I can't say Riley hit Abigail in the head with the block because she was mad at her because she took her other blocks. I don't know if Riley was really mad. Riley probably could have been happy when she hit her with the block. It probably could have made her day, right? We have to take that emotion out of it, and it's just factual. I observed Riley hit Abigail in the head with the block. Cannot put your opinion into it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, 10 of 5.
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, and quickly, communication with management. Seeing what's the open door policy for your school is something you guys really need to do if you haven't already, and that means what are good times that you can come and speak to them about things, because walking through the hallway talking about personal things should not be, you want them to have your undivided attention, vice versa. Boundaries, you have boundaries, they have boundaries. Learning what those are so you guys can respect each other. Always be respectful, even if somebody's not respectful to you. Like I said, never change your character. Just go through the chain of command. Always be intentional. Being intentional means just like you like to have someone say you're doing such a good job. Maybe giving that energy first to them, being like, you did a real good job with the schedule today. Sometimes they need to hear that. Okay? And transparency, so when you are asked how are things going, don't sugarcoat it, be respectful, but actually tell the truth. Nobody can help if you really don't share. Okay? I want y'all to watch this video. That's why I really want to make sure my time was good, because it's really good.
What do you call a kid who whines and yells and doesn't listen? Kid who doesn't respect authority. Well, I'll tell you what you call that kid. You call that kid me. I'm sure a lot of you would think you call a kid bad, but you see, me and bad were sort of interchangeable terms when I was growing up. I lied, I cheated, I skipped school. I think my kids are gonna watch this, so I won't give them any more ideas, but basically, you name it, I did it. And so it wasn't really difficult for the adults in my life to describe me. If destiny equals bad behavior, and bad behavior equals a bad kid, and destiny equals a bad kid. Case closed, problem solved. Destiny is a bad kid. And I heard that every single day, all day long, from my parents, teachers, relatives, all amazing people, by the way, if you're watching. I love you so much, but they unintentionally gave me my first label. The bad kid. And you know what? After a while, I just stopped fighting it. I went from being the bad kid to the bad teen, and eventually, the bad adult. And it sucked. It really sucked, y'all. I know the movies want us to think that the villains are living these glamorous lives with secret layers and witty comebacks. No, that's not the case. It's actually really lonely for the villain, and it's really unstable. We don't have long-lasting friendships. We don't have the best relationships, and we don't always get the best opportunities. So I said, you know what? This will be us. I want what the heroes get. I want the bestie, I want the relationship, with the new car. So I did what they tell you to do when you're trying to change your life. Read a bunch of self-help books. And it actually worked for a while. I was forming new habits. I was accomplishing my goals. I was learning to speak with more compassion, empathy. And for the first time in my life, I thought, you know what? I'm a good person. No more bad kid, no more villain. Destiny is a good person. Yeah, that is until my toddler had her first grocery store tantrum. All that compassion and empathy and blah, 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 that went out the window. And if you've experienced this before, then you know exactly where I'm going with this. Got a screaming toddler on a dirty floor, got a bunch of judgy eyes staring you down as the aisle starts to clear in. It's terrible. And before I knew it, I started behaving like the bad mom. I grabbed her, I picked her up, started doing that talking through your teeth thing that only parents know how to do. Stop it right now. Started shaming her and blaming her. What's wrong with you? You're being ridiculous. It's not that serious. I started treating her like the bad kid. All my years of cleaning up my act, and there I was, throwing an adult tantrum on aisle 6. I felt so defeated and so discouraged, and I just held my head as I cried my way to the register. But all is not lost, because I realized something very important that day. And it's this. Labels, especially those that we place on our children, are insidious. Not only do they keep us from having compassionate relationships with them, but they can keep them from having compassionate relationships with themselves. Too often we teach our children to identify with their behaviors rather than seeing the truth of who they are as separate from those behaviors. And that's actually a really important distinction. It's the difference between saying you are a bad kid and you're not following directions. It's a lot easier to learn and follow directions when you don't believe that you're inherently defective. And so that's why I believe that what we call our children can shape their destiny. And the labels we give them dictate our expectations of them. And our expectations of them dictate the way that we teach, treat, discipline, and communicate with them. They dictate the way that we love them. I'll put it like this. When you believe that a child is bad, you treat them as if they're bad. And when you treat them as if they're bad, they start to believe they're bad. And when they believe they're bad, they continue to behave as if they're bad. And that is how the bad kid becomes the self-sabotaging adult. And it's actually not just with negative labels either. I want you to consider what would happen to the child that hears, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to be the smart one, every time they make a mistake. We've seen that play out in adulthood. It's the person whose internal worth is based on their success and their achievements. But what happens when they fail? What happens when they don't live up to the label? Well, oftentimes they're consumed because they can't separate that internal worth and identity from their external success. And a lot of us do that, don't we? When we're scared, when we're stressed, when we're angry, our brains and bodies are just reactivated by the emotional memories that we're trying to run from. And that is why I lost it in the grocery store. And it's also why we really gotta drop the labels. How do we do that though? Well, we start by focusing on our children's internal experiences before we respond to their external behaviors. Y'all, we're still gonna correct them, we're still gonna discipline them, but we're gonna do that second and more mindfully and with more information. In their ugliest moments, rather than labeling them, we're gonna ask ourselves, what is my child experiencing right now? When they're struggling to apologize to their sibling, rather than labeling them as rude, we're gonna look at the shame and the embarrassment beneath their behavior. And we're gonna speak to those emotions before we teach them accountability. When they're struggling to sit still, rather than labeling them as out of control, we're gonna meet that need for movement, and we're gonna send them outside, y'all, not to time out. Now, when I realized this, it was huge, and it completely shifted the way that I see my daughter's bad behavior. And so if it's all right with you, I'd like to share what I did the next time she flopped like a fish. So, first, I just connected with her. I looked at her and I got down on her level. I heard the pain in her voice. I saw the tears in her eyes. I got present. I want you to consider what getting present with your child would look like. Is it putting the phone away? Is it actually listening when they tell you about their day? And while we're at it, what would getting present with yourself look like? Is it taking a good deep breath in the morning before you reach for your phone? Is it driving home in silence? Is it prayer? Is it meditation? It's a really important question, because presence is the quickest route to connection with our kids and with ourselves. And so after I got present, I got curious. Maybe this isn't manipulation. Maybe I can give her a more generous assumption. Maybe this is sorrow or disappointment or frustration. All emotions that I'm familiar with. And that thought instantly softened me. And then my calm presence softened her. And she said, Mommy, I'm so sad. My toy broke in the car. Now I can't have any candy. I never get what I want. And because I was present, I was able to tune into her experience from a place of empathy rather than judgment. And I said, baby, that makes sense. What you're saying makes sense to me. When's the last time you told your child that they make sense? That their feelings and their emotions are valid? We often don't. Luckily though, that day I did. And so once I validated her experience, she, my kid, at 3, was ready to move into problem solving and collaboration and cooperation. Not because of force or manipulation, no bad kid label, no bad mom label. She was ready to consciously choose a better behavior because I focused on her internal experience. And here's what's really cool. She's 5 now. And she is learning to focus on her internal experience and communicate with her words rather than her behavior. And that is the foundation for emotional intelligence. Something I definitely did not have as a kid. And so here's the thing. We can teach our kids effective, positive, productive behaviors while keeping their self-esteem intact. And we can do the same thing for ourselves. When the false labels come up, rather than running from them, we can sit with them. We can get curious, we can get information, and we can use that information to do what my daughter did in the grocery store, and more consciously choose the behaviors that follow. So here's my last question for you. What do you call a mom who connects before she corrects? Who listens more than she talks? And who is more curious than she is judgmental? That's me now. Most of the time. I don't know if I'll ever completely drop my bad kid label. I'll probably always be a little spicy. I'm okay with that. But I am confident enough to tell you this. You are not a label. Our kids, our partners, even our parents, okay, they're not labels. And if we want to move away from the projections and the prejudices that keep us divided, then we're going to have to get down on the grocery store floor. We're going to have to hear ourselves. We're really, really going to have to hear our kids. And we're gonna have to start seeing them as whole, complex, layered beings, not labels. Thank you.
All right, that's it, guys. Any questions?